So, Minister, can you tell me what your reaction was when you first learned of this crash and the death of the sub-lieutenant, as well as the crew members who are missing?
It's gut-wrenching when you have this receive information like this, and your heart immediately goes out to the families that would be impacted. And I just want to take this opportunity to pass on my personal condolences to Abigail's family. And I mean, I heard through TV how she used to play the bagpipes and playing Amazing Grace, and that she wanted to help people and was always there for people. So it was no surprise that she joined the Canadian Armed Forces to go out and help people around the world. And also to the families of the 5 Canadian Armed Forces members who are still missing, to them that we will leave no stone unturned to making sure that we put all the resources in during this search and rescue effort.
Do you have any sense now, I know it's a few hours later than the press conference this morning, of what happened that caused this accident?
No, unfortunately, the information that we provided, we don't have much more at this time. We want to make sure that we give the people who are at sea, the commanders on the ground, our crew of the Fredericton, to be able to continue on with the search and rescue efforts. But nonetheless, our flight safety team, either it's on its way or will be on its, or possibly already left, and we'll get all the answers. As you know, that the data and the flight recorder have been recovered. So we will get all the answers, but right now we're focused on the search and rescue effort at this time and making sure that we look after the families who have been impacted by this tragedy.
What can you tell me about how the search and rescue effort is unfolding? What techniques are you using to look for the crew and our allies in the region using?
Well, I can't get obviously explain any techniques because I'm not the expert on that. But one thing I can assure you is that the commander on the ground, there's multiple ships that are involved, multiple nations that are involved. And I spoke with some of my counterparts already. I spoke to the NATO Secretary General already twice to making sure that we put all the resources necessary at the hands of our leadership who are dealing with this tragedy on the ground. And that's the only way to deal with this. They'll make the appropriate decisions, and the commander on the ground will make the decisions based on what they're seeing. And as you can tell, based on the debris size and the depth of the water, it does make it challenging. But one thing I can assure you that all resources will be brought to bear in this search effort.
You've released the identities of the missing crew members. Does that mean that you do not believe they will be recovered alive?
As you know, we've confirmed the one death, and which is extremely tragic. We've released the names, but I can assure you that the search efforts are currently underway. And as you know, from the time tragedies from Afghanistan, everything is done within consultation with the families, and we felt that with the families' permissions that this was appropriate to do, and for them to know that they know exactly what's going on, that we keep them informed. You know, at times there's information can come from many different sources, and we wanted to make sure that we always kept the families in mind as we move forward, and we will continue to do this as we go on with this.
The Cyclones had some problems in their initial trials with the software. There was also concerns about the rotor blades possibly delaminating. Had those concerns been resolved?
When it comes to any project, we look at all the concerns and deficiencies. In fact, actually, it was in June 2015, I believe, that when the first cyclone arrived, and soon afterwards, when I became minister in November 2015, after the Halifax Security Forum, I visited Shearwater, saw the program myself. I was actually there just last year and to see the progression of the program and to see the enthusiasm of our pilots, our technicians, our mechanics of this capability that's brought to bear is, you know, it's really nice to see because they bring such ingenuity. And just this Christmas, I was there with my critics to visit the troops, and we flew into a Cyclone helicopter together. And the reason I mention this is that the process that we take to making sure that the crews are properly trained, the aircraft is properly equipped, all the deficiencies are looked at, and then permission is given to make the crews and the aircraft operational. That's done for every aircraft. The commander of the Air Force visited the first aircraft that was on one of our frigates. And one thing I can assure you that their investigative team will get to the bottom of this so we can have the appropriate answers for the families and also make sure that incidents like this are prevented.
So just that I'm clear then, those software concerns had been resolved?
We're going to be looking at all those things, but one thing I can assure you that any time the Canadian Armed Forces leadership approves the aircraft to be able to be deemed operational, it's gone through a very strict process. The crews are thoroughly trained. In fact, actually, the simulators and technology used is world class. So every single time we look at all those deficiencies, and that's what we'll do right now. As you know, we have an operational pause has been put into place until the commander of the Air Force feels there's enough information to make a decision either way, which way to go. We will leave no stone unturned for this investigation, and we will make sure that we have the appropriate answers for the families.
And just in terms of with what happened with this, you're describing it as an accident. So just for people at home, so they're clear, you believe that this was either some kind of a mechanical problem or a pilot error versus any kind of nefarious involvement from a third party?
Well, I'm not going to rule anything out, but we can say, as Chief of Defence Staff has already mentioned, that there is no indication of hostile intent. As you probably know personally, these frigates have tremendous capability when it comes to detecting threats. Plus, it was working with other allies as well, and they were conducting a training exercise at that time. But even though, as we have said, that we have no indications of this, the investigative team will leave no stone unturned and will look at all aspects of things to making sure that we get to the bottom of this. And I don't want to speculate in either way. I'm only wanting to describe things as best as possible based on the information that our teams are providing us. And it's important to allow the team to get to the bottom of this. And we will make sure that Canadians, and especially the families, are informed on a regular basis.